Hello everyone, and welcome to this new video where we will see together the incredible discovery of the mummy of the Marquise of DAI. It all began in March 1972 when China was in the midst of the Cultural Revolution. Workers will then make a discovery totally by chance and incredible: the entrance to the tomb of the Marquise, which was unknown and lost for more than 2,000 years. But it doesn't stop there. When they open the tomb, the workers will be even more astonished. For they will find the body of Dai's mummy painting in a reddish liquid. They will also find alongside the Marquise all her family, who for their part are completely decomposing. When experts will arrive for this mummy of this strange liquid, they will realize that it is in an incredible state of conservation. The mummy's flesh was still soft, the blood had retained some of its liquid state, and its hair was still in very good condition and well fixed in its scalp. Her state of preservation was such, and gave the impression of having died only a few hours or days ago. Even more incredible, his limbs had retained incredible flexibility, yet the Marquise of DAI is believed to have died more than 170 years before Christ. The case will then go around the world, and many specialists will try to determine how this mummy would have managed to brave the... To unravel its mystery, they will then perform an autopsy on the mummy, and from the first incision, the forensic doctors will remain stunned because the organs remained in extremely good condition, and his brain was almost intact. So the myth of the mummy intensified. Their investigation will therefore turn to this strange reddish liquid found inside the tomb. And after several analyses, scientists will be able to determine that the liquid has a high content of mercury, which is very strange for the time. Some theories therefore suggested that it is thanks to mercury that its state of conservation held so long, and that it is an ancient elixir of youth that has been lost over time. And even if most of these theories do not hold up in the case of the Marquise of DAI, one can clearly see that this magic potion worked because the body reached us in a remarkable state of preservation. And so far, no other mummy has been found in such a state of conservation. After now more than 50 years of investigation, scientists continue to try to determine how the mummy could have managed to reach us in such a state of conservation. New analyses have determined that the corpse was wrapped in more than 20 layers of linen, silk and cotton, fastened by 9 ribbons. But what was also remarkable is that the body would have been washed in a mixture of perfumes and wine that would have had an antibacterial effect. Once mummified, she would have been bathed in more than 27 liters of this strange liquid containing mercury. But despite research, no one has yet been able to determine the accuracy of this liquid. It may then be many years before we discover a method as effective as that of the Marquise of DAI to obtain a state of conservation of bodies over such a long period. But perhaps by discovering the composition of this liquid, we will also discover the elixir of eternity. It was in 1927, in a monastery in Siberia, that a Buddhist monk would have communicated his last wishes to his colleagues. Before he died, he reportedly explained that he wanted his body to be exhumed in 2002. About 75 years later, the confreres of this monk will then respect these instructions to the letter, and 75 years later, in 2002, his confreres will go in search of the monk's grave, and after a long day of walking, they will finally find the grave. Without further delay, they will hurry to open it, and at the time of opening the tomb, the monks will make an incredible discovery when they have opened the lid of the tomb. They will discover that the monk's head is covered with a shroud of self. When you remove this shroud, the top of the skull is bright, like that of a recently deceased person. They will examine the body and say it is not dehydrated. The body is almost intact with minimal signs of decomposition. But for monks, the most incredible thing is he was found in the same lotus position as when he died. 75 years later, the monk still seemed to be alive. And quickly, the news will cross borders to go around the world. There will be plenty of scientists and researchers who will then start to study this mummy to try to understand and discover its secret. And thanks to their research, they will succeed in understanding that during his lifetime, the way to practice Tibetan medicine, many believe he would have discovered an ancient process that stopped putrefaction. However, a little overwhelmed by the phenomenon, doctors will try different examinations to find a slightly more rational explanation. They will examine the surface of his body, and for them it is not really a mummy, because when you press on his skin, it would still have some flexibility, and there would not really be decomposition. Moreover, unlike the mummies that are generally found entirely bandaged, this mummy had only a lane on the head, which is very different. And unlike most mummies, the most impressive thing is that his muscles haven't even stiffened, and you could still move his limbs as if he were alive. And despite the research that's been done on this mummy, we are unable to give rational explanations on the conservation of this body, and there will be legends, and some which will, then there will be, and certainly legends that the least, who would have succeeded in preserving Unkir in secrecy, which would have allowed him to ensure eternity for his body. For others, this would be the place where he was buried. It would only be a suitable place for the preservation of bodies. And for Buddhists, he replies that the monk would in fact simply not be dead. He would still be in a state of meditation on the road to nirvana. So, fruit of imagination, spiritual force, or simple exception of nature.
You are free to meditate on this to choose the explanation that suits you best. It is in the Yamal Peninsula, in Russia.
Just a few miles from the Arctic Circle, this incredible discovery was made. It was in May 2007 that a reindeer breeder made an incredible discovery. At the edge of a frozen lake, he will discover a baby mammoth frozen for more than 40,000 years. And it is then that an incredible scientific adventure will begin to define its origin. An international committee would immediately be constituted to study the mammoth. It will be many scientists and researchers who will study the coin, and many photos and videos of this mammoth will be made during transport for its first examination. The discovery is fabulous and unique. At the time, one can observe a mammoth in perfect condition. This is the first time researchers have observed a mammoth in such a state of conservation. All those who have studied this mammoth agree that it had never managed to have such a remarkable specimen. The body was virtually intact and allowed them to conduct numerous research studies to better understand this lost species. They will name this baby mammoth Lyuba to recall the first name of the wife of the peasant who discovered it. The most extraordinary thing is that the baby still has its eyelashes, lips, and even pads. Lyuba will first go to Japan to undergo scanners with very advanced technology. Then she will be transported to St. Petersburg to perform various autopsies. And thanks to its extraordinary state of conservation, scientists were able to study the anatomy of the animal lived centuries ago and in the skin, blood, or intestines. Were carefully harvested before being analyzed, and researchers tried to go back in time to the Ice Age. They will succeed in decoding part of the ADN of the mammoth. And yet, currently, research is being done to try to better see whether it is possible to clone life or not. And with the various advances they've been able to make, some researchers think they might be able to bring this species back to life in the next 10 to 20 years, but at the moment, it's the only mammoth mummy we have, and we have to take great care of it then. With the incredible advances we're making in cloning lately, it's very likely that one day we'll see Lyuba's siblings appear. And that's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to tell me in the comments, and if you have other topics like that you want me to cover in my next videos. If you are interested in the amazing archaeological discoveries, you can go see my other episodes. You can like, share, and subscribe, but we'll see you in the next video. It's I Kick One Fire. Peace out.